Plastic straw ban. Cigarette butts are the single greatest source of ocean trash. So, cigarette butts have long been the single most collected item on the world's beaches, with more than 60 million collected over 32 years. Environmentalists have taken aim at the target systematically, seeking to eliminate or rein in big sources of ocean pollution. First plastic bags, then eating utensils, and most recently drinking straws. By the way, once again, I know you've heard me say it before, metal straws frickin' rule. All right? Get some. They frickin' rule. They're just better. It's better for the environment, and it tastes so much better. You won't regret it. Get a metal straw. More than a dozen coastal cities prohibited plastic straws last year. California is one of them. But the number one man-made contaminant in the world's ocean is the small but ubiquitous cigarette butt. And that has mostly avoided regulation. So, here's my question to you guys. In lieu of this new study, should we can't ban cigarettes, obviously. That's ridiculous, nor is that an appropriate response. I am a non-smoker myself, but if people want to smoke cigarettes, that's their choice. But should we have designated smoking areas at our public beaches? Should we have a certain area where you have to smoke, and then there's a place to deposit of your cigarette butts? I'm entertaining that from looking at this article. Now, keep in mind the fact that they're saying here. Here, let me go to the article real quick here. And then we're going to end on those questions. Cigarette butts, greatest source of ocean trash. 60 million collected over 32 years. Look at that. 60 million collected over 32 years. That's a lot. So, would it be appropriate to combat this by saying there has to be a designated area with a receptacle? Every designated smoking area has to have a receptacle available, and people put their cigarette butts there. And, of course, if you're caught... I think a lot of public beaches, if you're caught littering, there is a consequence. Like, there's a fine if somebody catches you, but somebody needs to catch you. But what do you guys think? Now, I'll say this. I think something like that would be okay. I'd be in favor of it. I don't think that's infringing on anybody's right to smoke. If you want to smoke a cigarette, that's your business. But I don't think it's unfair to say in a public beach, because cigarette butts are such a problem, that at a public beach you have to go to a designated area for a number of reasons. First of all, it could hopefully reduce the amount of cigarette butts that pollute the oceans. And also, if you're in a crowded beach and people are all around you and you're smoking a cigarette, that can be kind of intrusive. Some people are allergic to that stuff. So, I respect somebody's right to smoke. However, they also need to respect other people's rights not to smoke. People's rights to not be inhaling cigarette smoke at a place like a public beach. Now, if you're in a bar that permits smoking, then you got to deal with it, because that's okay there. Some states have outlawed that. In fact, most have, but some don't. In some bars, they want people to be able to smoke there, so they make a conscious effort to make sure they adhere to the guidelines that still permit smoking there. So if you're at a place like that, that's where you're at. Like that's the place for it. So, you can't complain about cigarette smoke if you're at a bar that intentionally doesn't serve food so they can permit smoking, and they make the choice to still have smoking there because their clientele wants to smoke. But at a public beach, I feel like that's a different story. That's a public space. It's a nature space. I feel like people got to be respectful of each other in that regard. Similarly, how you can't, blast your music at full blast. That's kind of inconsiderate. Play it at a reasonable volume so you guys can hear it. So anyway, I would be in favor of something like that, having a designated area with receptacles, and maybe having some people kind of monitor it. Having some people like, hey, are you throwing your cigarette butt away? Maybe they comb the area, try to pick up some stuff. If somebody intentionally doesn't throw their cigarette butt in the proper receptacle, that's a fine. Just like littering's a fine. And then, of course, so do you guys think something like that would be the way to go? Let me see what you guys are saying in the chat. Chris says, when I was a kid and we went to Florida, they had a smoking plank area at one beach, and smoking wasn't allowed on the sand. That's pretty cool. I've never littered a cigarette butt at a beach. Good for you, Sheepless in Seattle. That's good. Catching litter bugs would be a better use of police time than busting people with weed or harassing people of color. Absolutely. No kidding. Not sure how much designated smoking area at the beach will help, but it's not a bad idea. I'd like to think it would help. I guess we don't know unless we try, but I hear you. Let's see. Is there a way to make cigarettes environmentally safe? That's a fun question. I have no idea, though. That requires... I don't know. Student email says it's 2019 vape. All right.
Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. You can tweet me an article at Ron Placone. We'll go through it together and